Hello, everyone. This is Rabbi Bolton, and I have a Passover story, and then afterwards we'll learn a little bit from the Likkutei Sichot that we learn in the morning, because we won't have a chance to finish it. Tomorrow there will be a class, but on Wednesday, probably not. Okay, first of all, before I begin the story, I would like to just make something clear. Passover is this Wednesday night. Let me just close the door over here. And that what it says on this, the things that I posted about the Passover Seder, those were posted last year when Passover was on Friday night. But this year it's not that way. Passover is Wednesday night. Wednesday evening is Passover. So you can't eat chametz from Wednesday in the daytime, like from 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that. According to your place, you have to ask your rabbi. You're not allowed to eat any chametz or bread. You have to get it out of your house like by 10, 9 o'clock in the morning. Each place is a little bit different. Okay, but the Seder, Passover Seder night is on Wednesday night, and Jewish people are outside of Israel, so it's Wednesday night and Thursday night. Huh? Wednesday night going into Thursday, and Thursday night going into Friday. Okay. Story. Just one moment. Oh. Once there was a pupil of the Baal Shem Tov. Who's the Baal Shem Tov? Baal Shem Tov was a man that lived about 300 years ago, a Jew, 300 years ago in the Ukraine, and his name was Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem. That was his name, Yisrael Baal Shem. Oh, and he was a very gifted person, very genius person. But his gift was, in addition to his genius and his religious qualities and his love of God and his fear of God, but a totally unusual love of every Jew and every creation for that matter. But the Jews are such a special type of creation that he had a special love for them. Not like a person loves, let's say, a diamond more than he'll love $100 bill. They're both valuable, but a diamond is a totally different thing. So Jews are something totally different. And the Baal Shem Tov loved every Jew with all of his heart. How did that express itself? Because what's the essence of a Jew? Every Jew is the son of God. Every Jew is beloved by the Creator, and every Jew has a tremendous responsibility to make the world see how good God is, how much God loves everybody, how God is creating everybody. And this can only be done if the Jews have the Torah. So that's the story. Baal Shem Tov used the Torah, used the learning of the Torah to increase love of God, love of the Torah, and love of every Jew, which can only be done through the Torah, because without the Torah, you don't know what to do. It's like giving first aid to somebody and you don't know how to do first aid. So you can you pump on his eyeball instead of pumping on his stomach or his heart, or whatever. So you don't know what to do. So that's the idea of the Torah. But in addition to that, the Torah also provides us a connection to the Creator, because the Torah is the wisdom and the will of God, the Creator. Okay, the goal, who's going to make all this manifested in the world, is the Mashiach. Mashiach, as is somehow or other translated into English, I don't know how that got to be, but anyway, Messiah. The word Mashiach means that he's anointed. Messiah means anointed. Maybe messy, maybe it's a little bit messy. You get anointed, messes up your clothes, maybe that's why it's the Messiah. Anyway, I don't know how that got to be Messiah, but it's Mashiach. Mashiach is going to be a person just like Moses, and he's going to take the Jews out of their ignorance, out of their lack of identity, out of their unawareness that they're the sons of God and they're the servants of God and they're the soldiers of God, like we learned in the morning. wake up Jewish identity. That's what Mashiach is going to do. And Elijah the prophet is supposed to announce the Mashiach. He's supposed to prepare the world for the Mashiach. Sort of a mysterious figure, Elijah, not as mysterious as they have called Mashiach ben Yosef. The Mashiach is supposed to come from the tribe of King David, at Tzemach David. But there's also a mysterious figure in Judaism called the Mashiach ben Yosef, and there's a lot of different opinions who that is, but it's not important for us. What is important is Elijah the prophet will come and announce the Mashiach. Good. And there have been people in the history of Judaism that have seen and that spoke to on a regular basis Elijah the prophet. Now, when did Elijah the prophet live? He lived in the middle of the first temple, closer to the beginning, sort of the first temple, which that's already like 2,600 years ago. That's where he lived, and he didn't die. It says Elijah did not die. You can look in the Tanakh that Elijah went up into heaven in a chariot. You don't see that every day. Went up to heaven alive in a chariot, and he comes back according to Jewish tradition. He's present at every circumcision. They even make a special table, chair for Elijah the prophet. And he comes and visits everybody's house on the night of the Seder. Okay. So there were people, like I said, that Elijah the prophet used to speak to them on a regular basis. If you see the Talmud begins in Brachot that Elijah the prophet appeared to two people. Who was Rabbi Ashi or somebody? You have to look over there and see. He appeared to them, and he appeared to him and told them some laws, whatever. And Elijah the prophet appeared on a very regular, like I said, regular basis to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he was later on already. He was not one of the Tanaim. He was one of the Amorim. Anyway, he appeared to him also on a regular basis. Okay, Elijah the prophet. So Elijah the prophet would come. He appeared. It says to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. There's whole parts in the book the Zohar where Elijah the prophet speaks to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, gives him messages. In any case, there are people who have seen and who were visited, by Elijah the prophet. Well, there was one of the pupils of the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov was like 300 years ago. The Baal Shem Tov of this Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem, and he began this whole movement of Chassidut. And this pupil, he was young. I think he was not married, according to the story. And he said he wanted to see Elijah the prophet. He really wanted to see it. He realized that there was no way that he was going to see Elijah the prophet. I mean, you have to be at a tremendous level of purity of intention and of mind and of heart. But he couldn't get it out of his mind. He wanted to see Elijah the prophet. So he went to the Baal Shem Tov. And he said, listen, I know that this is like chutzpah. I know that this is very sort of cheeky, whatever they call it. But I want to see Elijah the prophet. I really have a big desire to see Elijah the prophet. And he was expecting the Baal Shem Tov would, say, okay, my boy, I understand. So you have to learn this and you have to do this. And maybe, come back to me in like 5 years, 10 years. You're too young. He was sure that the Baal Shem Tov would just, at best, give him some advice how he could do. And at worst, he would just tell him to leave. But he had nothing to lose. So he went to the Baal Shem Tov and he said, Master, I want to see Elijah the prophet. I know that he appears to people, and I want to see Elijah the prophet. I want to have this revelation, and maybe I have some questions to ask him. And he was just waiting for the Baal Shem Tov, to say something like, no. So what did the Baal Shem Tov say to him? He said, oh, okay, no problem. You want to see the Baal Shem Tov? Yes. He said, really? Yeah. He said, yes. He says, listen, in another 3 days is going to be Passover. You load up your wagon with food and with meat and with matzah, with wine, with fish. Make sure your wagon is cleaned out, that there's no hummus, no bread or anything like that. We'll clean it up and wrap this stuff up well and go to the next village. It's about half an hour drive. And he tells them what street to go down, which house. They go in, they knock on the door. It's this old hut. and tell them that you want to spend Passover there and that you're willing to give all this food. And they're gonna, and you'll see, I promise you, you're going to see Elijah the prophet. So he was just amazed, the pupil was just astounded. Such a tremendously high level of truth to see. So he said, okay. So he prepared the food, he prepared the meat, he prepared everything, didn't cook anything, he brought it all. And he went to the next town and he found the house and he knocked on the door. And an old lady answered. She said, oh, yes, young man, can I help you? He said, listen, I want to stay here for the Passover. He said, well, we would love to have you, but we don't have any food. He said, look, I brought all this from you. I'm a pupil of the Baal Shem Tov. And she was so happy. And that's it. So he stayed there. No, comes the first night, and the woman is tremendously happy, and they make a little corner for him or something in the house so he can lay down and sleep. Excuse me, Passover comes. The night of Passover comes, and this pupil of the Baal Shem Tov, like he got a good sleep beforehand so that he would not miss 1 minute. And he goes to the synagogue, and everybody looks at is there. Maybe that's the Elijah the prophet. Maybe that's Elijah the prophet. He goes home. The whole night passes by, and he's looking, the husband and the wife, he's looking at the windows, looking at the doors. There's one point when they open up the door for Elijah the prophet. Maybe this is it. No, nothing. And so it goes on the whole entire Passover, right? All outside of Israel, it's 8 days. 8 days. I don't know if I said this, but this happened in the Ukraine. The Baal Shem, there was Mezibuz, there's a city in the Ukraine. So the holiday ends, and he didn't see anything. He almost didn't sleep at all, nothing whatsoever. And he went back and he said to the Baal Shem Tov, excuse me, the holiday is finished. I didn't see anything. The Baal Shem Tov said, it can't be. For sure you saw Elijah the prophet. He said, listen, it could be Elijah the prophet revealed himself there. But I'm just not at the level to understand. It was wrong for me to ask. I'm really sorry. He says, the Baal Shem Tov said, no, you're wrong. You saw Elijah the prophet. I'm sure you saw him. Go back to the town, and the man and his wife, they're putting the vessels, the Passover dishes and pots, they're putting them back and taking out the regular weekday, what's called the chametz vessels, and listen to what they say. Listen to what the wife says to her husband. Listen, park outside of the window and listen. Good. So he goes back to the town, to this little village, and he parks his carriage sort of far away, his wagon, and he creeps up next to the window, and sure enough, there's the wife and her husband. They've washed all the vessels for Passover, and they're putting them back. They put them back in a closet or something like that, and they take it out. They're going to take it out next Passover, and they're taking out the vessels for the weekday, for the regular. So he listens very carefully. He hears the woman say to her husband, Shmerel, that boy, that young man that came, that was really something. He was really special. The husband said, oh, yes. He's a pupil of the Baal Shem Tov. What do you want? He's a holy man. He's very special, of course. So the wife says, no. She says, I don't think you're getting what I'm saying. I don't think that was a normal, regular person. I think he just said he's the pupil of Baal Shem Tov. She said, if you ask me, she says to her husband, if you ask me, that was not a normal person. That was Elijah the prophet. He was Elijah the prophet. Suddenly he realized the young man, he was listening in the window. Who was Elijah the prophet? He's Elijah the prophet. What does it mean he's Elijah the prophet? That every person is supposed to announce the arrival of the Mashiach. Every person is supposed to do all they can to bring Mashiach. And he had that quality. Each one of us has that quality. Not recognized in anyone, but she recognized that in him. That's what the young man suddenly realized. What am I looking out there for, Elijah the prophet? I myself have to be Elijah the prophet. Each one of us has that ability, and that's the lesson we can learn. Sometimes we don't recognize our own potential. In fact, sometimes, rarely, we do recognize our potential. Majority of the time, we have no idea what potential for good and for blessing and for love and for benefiting the world we have. We don't recognize it. We don't recognize what a powerhouse of good is inside of each and every one of us. And that's the idea of Passover, to realize that who is Elijah the prophet? Who's going to announce the Mashiach? We are, me and you and each one of us. That is the story of Passover. Okay, let's now learn, we'll stop this here 1 second, and then we'll learn a little bit of the Devar Malchut. 1 second.